Surprise, surprise. A lot of those surprises in the NFL Top 100 by the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll start at quarterback here in just a second.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That's right, man. It's your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL podcast, where we take time to give you all the big stories from around the National Football League as we get ready for training camp. And we won't disappoint you today. We'll do that again. Shout out to the everydayers that join us. We appreciate you being here with us and making us your first listen. And if you're new, welcome. And we'll give you a reason to come back, because every single episode is free wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you find it, whether you watch or listen, and tap in so you don't miss an episode like the one today that is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hey, man, let me tell you where we're going to go here with this today. The Locked On Podcast Network, we did our version of the NFL Top 100. All the local experts chimed in. We had some surprises. At the end of the show, we'll talk about disrespect in Dallas with Dak Prescott. Got put behind a kicker. We'll discuss that one. The 49ers aren't dead yet. I'll tell you what I mean when I say the 49ers aren't dead yet, because they had a bunch of people put into this list. But the Top 100 had a few surprises, and one of those surprises started at the absolute very top with the quarterbacks. For the first five were quarterbacks on this list. And I'm telling you, man, it was a lot of people responded with the fact that they felt that they were disrespected. Let's hear from the Peacock and Williamson podcast first about what happened at the very top of our Locked On NFL Top 1.
But let's go to the top. And I think causing the most waves is Lamar Jackson, number one in the NFL Top 100 players as voted on by the hosts. Number two is Patrick Mahomes, then Josh Allen. I think it's no shock that those three guys are at the top in some order. Did we get the order right, Matt, is the question when it comes to those top quarterbacks. And then it goes Myles Garrett before Joe Burrow shows up at number 5.
I have no problem with it. Now, I think it's very easy, and probably what I would have done, too, is just put Mahomes at 1. I mean, I think he's the greatest quarterback that ever lived. I think he's still awesome. But by his awesome standards, he did not have an awesome year. Jackson and Allen did. They were neck and neck for MVP rankings. I would have voted for Jackson, but I understand that why Allen won it, because I think he had less around him. He didn't have Derrick Henry. He didn't have as good of circumstances. But I don't know that I don't know if I remember a better quarterback year than the one Lamar had. I mean, his TD to interception ratio is insane.
One comes to mind for me. I think Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl or won the MVP one year. He had like 43 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. But I understand Matt's point. A lot of talk about the very top of this thing. And from an individual standpoint, I want to hear from Joe Marino. Now, you heard this yesterday if you listen to Locked On NFL every day. But Joe Marino, he wasn't happy that Josh Allen was number 3. Listen.
I hate to say it, but we absolutely got it wrong. I'm Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, and Josh Allen deserved to be the number 1 quarterback and player on the top 100 list. Why? Well, no player in NFL history has produced more scoring than Josh Allen. Josh Allen averages the most touchdowns per game of any player in NFL history, and he's posted 5 consecutive 40-touchdown seasons. No other player has posted more than 2 in a row, and the turnover narrative has been shattered. In his 2024 MVP campaign, Josh Allen produced the greatest season in NFL history for the lowest percentage of plays that resulted in an interception, sack, or fumble. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes are elite NFL players, tier 1 for sure. But Lamar Jackson continues to be pedestrian at best in the playoffs when his team needs him to be at his best, and that's our number 1 player. And speaking of pedestrian, that's exactly what the Chiefs' offense has been over the last 2 seasons with Mahomes engineering the number 15 scoring offense in 2023 and 2024. From my understanding, this isn't a legacy list. For more on the Bills, subscribe to Locked On Bills wherever you get your podcasts.
One of the best in the business, Joe Marino. I'm going to disagree with Joe a little bit. And the reason why I'm going to disagree with him is because sometimes, I'm caught in this area where numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth, right? And if we're going to talk about playoff failures, if you haven't at least gone to a Super Bowl, then I don't think you can point out that somebody else hasn't gone to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Both teams have gone to a championship game and didn't get past it. That means to get to a championship game, they won in the first round. Some of them have lost in the second round. Lamar's lost in the second round too. So is Josh Allen. The thing about the stats too, you're going to add rushing yards and touchdowns in there too. I mean, we can do that all day. Patrick Mahomes, though, you can't just look at his team and say how his numbers went down when you don't factor in attrition and injuries. So when we get into these things, I think it's very, very hard. But I also understand where Joe is coming from, because you're supposed to boldly petition for your own team. And Lou DiBiase from Locked On Eagles has absolutely no issue with doing that. Listen to what he said about the disrespect that his team gets.
I think we have to start putting more respect on the name of Jalen Hurts. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Jalen Hurts coming in at number 46 on our Locked On NFL Top 100 list. I think that's way too low for the Super Bowl MVP, who has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. I think he's kind of getting punished for having such a star-studded offense that obviously takes a lot of the load off his plate, but we have to add context to what Jalen Hurts has done. Eventually, on-field results have to matter. This guy has shown an elite ceiling. He was an MVP runner-up in 2022 when the Chiefs dared him to beat them in the Super Bowl. When they took out Saquon Barkley, he threw for over 200 yards, had 3 touchdowns, including 2 through the air. Jalen steps up when the games matter the most, like the NFC Championship, like the Super Bowl. I think eventually that has to matter more than it does on this list. I'm not even saying he's a top 4 quarterback, but number 46 I think is too low for the MVP of the Super Bowl.
That's a good argument. It might be too low for Jalen Hurts. Shout out to the Eagles, though. They had 7 people on this list. They had more people on this list than anybody. Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Jordan Malatala to go along with Jalen Hurts, and then 2 defensive players, Jalen Carter and Zach Bond. But you can't ignore the fact that he has all of those players on his team, and then when you wonder, okay, what would he be without that? So this isn't like the best player on the best team award or list. It's the best player, regardless of all of that other stuff. Football is the ultimate team sport. I get giving guys credit who play for basketball teams where there are only 5 guys on the court at one time, and then you win an MVP, and it's like, okay, there you go, right? It's hard to do that in football. It is hard to do that in football unless you try to imagine that team without that player. And if I imagine Philly without Jalen Hurts, they would not be the same. But if you gave me somebody who's close or similar, you can give me a healthy Kirk Cousins. I don't know if they win the Super Bowl, but they wouldn't fall off. You put Baker Mayfield in that situation, they wouldn't fall off very much. So I think sometimes that's where people are with this list. I've been saying the 49ers were a little bit off, but guess what? Maybe they're not, because the 49ers chimed in and they had 5 people on this list. We'll talk about them and the Detroit Lions that had 6. And Matt Derry still isn't happy from Locked On Lions. We'll hit that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. I was watching tennis, WNBA, and all that stuff, man. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the action while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. then you can go out there and join them with a pocket full of money. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first team wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. NFL Top 100 from Locked On is out. You can find that at the Locked On Sports Today page. Some of the funniest things ever, man, is watching everybody feel like they kind of got disrespected in this whole thing. One team that didn't really get disrespected, but probably has been, if you've listened to me talk, the San Francisco 49ers. I think they've been fabulously talented at a very, very top heavy. But I thought that was kind of diminishing a little bit because guys are starting to get older. But the folks at the Locked On Podcast Network, including myself, as a whole, didn't think that. Here's my man Brian Peacock talking about one of their players that actually landed as the best at his position on our list.
Kudos to my Locked On colleagues because they got this one right. I am Brian Peacock, co-host of Locked On 49ers. And yes, George Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL. And yes, he's actually the most valuable skill position guy on the San Francisco 49ers, even ahead of Christian McCaffrey. In fact, my esteemed co-host Eric Crocker and I, when we put our list together of top 10 San Francisco 49ers and our nominations for the top 100 list, we actually had George Kittle number one, even ahead of Nick Bosa and ahead of Fred Warner. George Kittle, we know how good he is. We know what kind of a receiver he is. We know what kind of a blocker he is, the best in the NFL. But he's a heart and soul player for the San Francisco 49ers. And when comparing him to someone like Christian McCaffrey specifically, look, the 49ers still ran the ball 5 yards per carry clip in Kyle Shanahan's offense with Jordan Mason. In fact, little nugget here, Jordan Mason actually has a higher career yards per carry than Christian McCaffrey does. Now, McCaffrey brings a lot to the passing game, but so does George Kittle. Such a great football player, heart and soul of the San Francisco 49ers, and also hasn't missed most or all of 3 of the last 5 seasons. George Kittle, easy top 100 player in the NFL. You can't put him too high. For more on the San Francisco 49ers, subscribe to Locked On 49ers on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast.
There you go. My man got George Kittle as the top tight end. Look, I will say he's the most complete because y'all know I hate move tight ends. If you've ever heard me talk about that on Locked On Jaguars or anywhere else, I don't hate them. I just prefer to have a dude that does everything because now it's not a tell. And with Kittle, you can't tell if he's blocking, if he's going out for a route or doing whatever. Quick George Kittle story. This is the only time, well, it was one of the few times I've ever done this. In an informal setting, I was standing there with my wife, and Tom Coughlin says, "Hey, this is a real good dude." He doesn't even know when he said that my wife was actually angry at me. She got on me in the car about something on the way, and we went to a charity event for the J Fund. And when he said that, it kind of made her not mad at me anymore. He came up and acknowledged her. I said, "Coach, I don't do this often, but can I tell you about a player in the draft?" He said, "Go ahead, shoot. You got one shot." I said, "That kid out of Iowa named Kittle." He smiled and walked away. Jaguars didn't draft him. I wish they had. And Jaguar fans do too. I ain't mad at George Kittle for being where he is on this list. There's a team that has six. I said it right. They finished second with 6, and that is the Detroit Lions. My man Matt Derry said he actually submitted on his own form that he had 8 guys there from the Lions. I told you people feel disrespected, man. Folks will find anything to get mad. They say athletes do this, but no, grown men do it too. They get upset. They're like, "No, man, he ain't really upset, but he's just letting you know that they got 6 on this top 100, and they should have had more than that." Check this out.
So again, Sewell, Hutch, St. Brown, Ja Gibbs, Kirby Joseph, and Jared Goff coming in as the 6 Lions that made the top 100. Only the Eagles had more players on this list. They had 7. Lions with 6. Now, the 2 players that I had put on the list, I thought the Lions should have had 8. And the 2 players that I think got snubbed and didn't make the list were Brian Branch and Sam Laporta.
That's a lot of people, man. I tell you what, I might go a little bit further and say that DJ Reed, their brand new corner, should have been there. DJ Reed's a good football player. a really good football player. So I might argue that DJ Reed should have been considered as a part of that list, but I digress. He has 6. He says he should have had 8. I think the Jaguars had 1. It's not the one that I thought. I'll tell you about that in segment 3. But look, I wish, man, don't y'all wish if you got a bad team out there and you don't hardly have too many people, don't you wish you had 6 players? Matt Derry says they should have had 8. And then I just named another one, even though he played for the Jets last year. They could have at least had 9. Case in point, if you pull for a bad team every single day, this kind of tells you how far you have to go in order to be elite enough walking out of the tunnel. And we talk about that. I know I do all the time. What is it like when you're out there and you feel like you have a chance? And I got this because one day we had joint practices here in Jacksonville with Tampa. And I'm watching Jacksonville the whole time during training camp. And I'm like, man, you know what? We look all right, especially because you get new people in with last year. This is years back. This is like 5-6 years ago. And then they had joint practices with Tampa. And Mike Evans comes around that corner. And all of those other players they had, at the time, Levante David was in his prime. Vita Vea. And these dudes start coming. I'm like, oh, so that's what it looks like. And I always imagine before games, like, okay, the better you are, you name more people. The worse you are, you go, okay, who are our top 3 guys to get off that bus first or to come out of that tunnel first to go against their top 3? Because when you're bad, you can't go too far beyond 3 or 4, and the other team has 14 dudes, right? Like the 14th guy on their team would be the 6th best player on your team. And it's disheartening. And I'm sure when you guys look at this, if your team is bad like the one that I cover, you go, wow, we got a long, long way to go. But here's the silver lining. Nothing that these guys did to earn this spot on this list is going to be able to help them this year. And that's why I said we'll talk about the Jaguars and Travis Hunter, who made this list. And he hasn't played a down yet, right? He made this list at number 67. I'm going to go to the NFC East too and tell you why a kicker is rated as the best player, or the second best player or something like that on the Dallas Cowboys. At least the kicker is thought of in more high regard than Dak Prescott. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. The Dallas Cowboys are always in the news, sometimes for the wrong reasons. It's never usually for winning the ultimate deal, but they know they can find themselves in some headlines. Found them yesterday too because their kicker was put on the list before their quarterback. And that's kind of a same situation where I'm like, well, if I was Dallas, I'd be like, well, I appreciate your acknowledgement, but damn, for real? Listen to my man Landon McCool and his response to the Dallas Cowboys being in the top 100.
Brandon Aubrey being ranked above Dak Prescott is about disrespect for Dak Prescott, but that doesn't mean that Brandon Aubrey isn't a great kicker. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and the Dallas Cowboys knew that they had found something when they got Brandon Aubrey early on, and he has rewarded them, plucking him from the USFL ranks with going 42 of 47 from kicks beyond 40 yards. And that includes going 24 of 27 in 50 yards and beyond kicks. He's also great on kickoffs and really a great locker room guy. It's unfortunate that the kind of headline here is going to be about him being ranked above his highly discussed quarterback who is being disrespected here. But I think Brandon Aubrey is an incredible kicker, one of the best in the NFL, and deserves his high ranking on this list.
I think it is pretty accurate for me to say that when you cover a team locally, you have a perspective where you understand that a certain person's value. And in this point, I'm talking about Dak Prescott, and I can even put Trevor Lawrence in this situation, where you have your finger on the pulse of the team and you realize and recognize the importance that a player has on a team's success. More importantly, you understand the importance that they have on a team's failures when they're injured and not there. And I think that affects the perspective in a positive way for all of the people that cover their teams locally. Nationally, you can't get that. It's like if you're not there, you're not in the immediate circumference of it, you don't have a real reading on the temperature of the room. So that's why I really, really do like our list. Sometimes we miss on some things, and rightfully so. You got to just give credit where credit is due. So I'll take a minute before I stay in the NFC East to talk about Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is number 67 on this list. And if you notice Travis Hunter being number 67 on this list, well, you already know he hadn't played a down yet. I'm going to give you the people around him from 61 to 70. Nico Collins, Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams is in the top 25 for me. Rashawn Slater, Trey McBride, Christian Gonzalez, very good player. Will Anderson is in the top 30 for me. Travis Hunter is right there at 67, ahead of Jordan Love. I'm not going to put Travis Hunter ahead. I'm not even going to put Travis Hunter ahead of his own teammate, Brian Thomas Jr., who was snubbed. Hall of Famer Mike Evans is at 69, and Quinn Miners is at 70. Am I going to call it disrespectful? No, I ain't going to call it disrespectful that Travis is on the list as opposed to Brian Thomas Jr. I just think it was a little Brian Thomas Jr. not being there it's a little disrespectful. Travis Hunter being on the list ahead of guys, I can understand why people think it might be disrespectful. For me, it's the hype train, man. I think some people don't know the difference, and I'm not talking about us per se, because I saw this. This is where I'm getting something from college football. Someone said that Arch Manning was the most popular football player in the country. And I'm thinking, like, how can you be popular when you've only really played 4 or 5 games? And that's hype. That's not popular. Popular to me is Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams that have gone out here and shown you week after week after week after week how good they are, how much better they are than their older competition. I don't think you can say a guy's popular if he hasn't actually been out there doing the thing that makes him popular. That means he's hyped and he's known, and there's an expectation. But I think popularity sometimes should be results-based. Travis Hunter hasn't played yet. Brian Thomas Jr. has, and he's been a stud. And he only had 4 games with Trevor Lawrence and still had amazing stats. But beyond the numbers, the eyeball test showed me exactly who and where he was. Now, there's been a lot of talk this season about whether or not Jayden Daniels will have a sophomore slump, which I don't know how you can. This is a Cam Newton, Ryan Clark discussion. I don't know how you can come to the summation that I don't know if Cam actually said he was going to have a slump, but I know it was brought up, right? Everything to me indicates that this kid is going to outright, flat out, do the same thing that he did last year, or even do it even better. The difference between him and CJ Stroud is CJ Stroud played in a bad division and then all of a sudden got a first place schedule. And then the other part of it is CJ Stroud doesn't have a getaway car like those legs that Jayden Daniels has. My man David Harrison, of course, you heard from him yesterday here on Locked On NFL, as you always do and always will. Talked about Jayden Daniels and where he is on the NFL Top 100 done by the Locked On Podcast Network.
Jayden Daniels is already a star now in 2025. It's time for him to become a superstar. I'm David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast, and Daniels is entering his second NFL season ranked 31st overall, the 6th highest ranked quarterback in our Locked On NFL Top 100 after winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award in 2024. Now, with 5 primetime games and 10 national broadcast games in 2025, yeah, some of them are cupcake games like Week 2 in Green Bay, but still, Daniels is going to have every opportunity to showcase his talents. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes both won the NFL MVP award in their second NFL seasons. Jayden Daniels has the poise, the system, and now the spotlight to be the third among this top 6 quarterback group. And I wouldn't be shocked if he breaks into the top 5 as early as 2026. For more on the Commanders, subscribe to Locked On Commanders on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, look, do I think it's possible that because of more tape, because these older dudes, these dudes have been coaching for 30 years in the NFL, man, they know how to design stuff to shut you down and stop you, right? And I think maybe without knowing the nuances of the whole Cam Newton, Ryan Clark discussion or the comments that they both made, Cam's doing this from experience. And he's being cautious, like, look, man, they will try to figure you out. And we know that can happen. That's happened to a lot of players. So from that perspective, I get it. But I think Jayden's built differently. I think the quiet, cool, calm nature, the fact that he's unflappable, the fact that the ebb and flow of his emotions always stayed even keeled, whether it was the highs or the lows, whether he had the same look on his face when they lost to Detroit, he had the same look on his face when they won on the road against Tampa. He had the same look on his face when they won a late game. I keep thinking about the Chicago cornerback getting beat for a touchdown. That game that they had last year against the Bears in Washington, he just has this same demeanor. He doesn't get high or low. So a lot of times with these young players, what happens is, at least from the outside looking in, and I don't have the same perspective as a former great NFL player like Cam Newton, but sometimes the personality of a player will determine whether or not they lose sight of what's important and don't keep the main thing the main thing. It could have easily happened to Jalen Hurts. When Jalen Hurts got his money and started getting banged up and then didn't play well, you heard people sit there and say, well, I don't know if he got the money, it wasn't worth it. And then he goes back and he wins the Super Bowl and he wins the MVP with a new offensive coordinator. And the commonality between them two and the parallel that I'm drawing, it's going to be fun to watch them play against each other for a number of years, is their even-keeled nature, their unflappable nature. So because of that, in my opinion, if there's a sophomore slump, it'll just be something that's temporary bump in the road that he has to overcome because people are going to start looking at him a little bit differently and doing things a little bit differently. But here's where Washington has to do. What Washington has to do. Insulate him. Get other players to take some of the stress off of him. And I think David Harrison just mentioned that a few days ago, and I even played the clip here on Locked On NFL. That's where Deebo Samuel comes in. Yeah. That's where they better get Terry McLaurin happy, because that's where that comes in. Those guys are like running back punt returners playing wide receiver. Let them carry the ball. Let Robinson and those running backs carry the ball a little bit. Take some of those things that you're asking Jayden to do on a down in and down out basis where he has to be Superman. Eliminate him having to be Superman. Let him play the Batman role a little bit. Sometimes he's Batman, sometimes he's Bruce Wayne. But just let him fall back a little bit and let other people do some of the heavy lifting. I think if Washington can do that and they continue to have coaching continuity, I think Jayden Daniels will be just fine. Make sure you tap into Locked On Sports today and look at this complete NFL Top 100 list that was done by all of the local experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Don't take it too serious. Take none of this stuff too seriously. It's the game, man. That's what's going to matter. But you can enjoy it and make sure you tap in because Peter Bukowski does a great job. Please subscribe to the podcast. Also, Locked On Sports Today. You'll get the best of the day each and every day from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, I'm Tony Wiggins. We'll see you later as we get close to training camp. We'll be here every single day. Tap in with Tyler Rowland early in the morning. The Madman's going to wake you up tomorrow on Locked On NFL AM. We'll see you next time.